Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. How much good would £60 million do if you handed it to the NHS? That's a lot more staff hired, that's a lot more work being done to reduce waiting lists, especially in A&E. There's a lot more operations that could be done. There's quite a significant difference £60 million could make, especially at the short end, the small things that people go into A&E for example, the little things. You could clear that out massively with that kind of money. And yet, the thing is, they've already had that money. But the NHS has been forced to spend it on something it shouldn't have to spend it on. Legal fees. Over £60 million have been shelled out in legal fees because patients are taking the NHS to court continually because of its failures. Its continual mismanagement or the failure to treat correctly, misdiagnoses, all sorts of things. And this is happening because of the stresses on the NHS. Overworked doctors making misdiagnoses, for example, because they haven't slept for 20 hours. You've got nurses running hell and leather back and forth. They're going to miss things. People are going to fall off. There's all sorts of problems. And then at the managerial level, you have the understaffing, underperformance of these managers that claim to know what they're doing and obviously don't. And it's meant absolute chaos in the NHS in Scotland. Let's have a look. So, SNP-run NHS shells out £60 million in legal fees as peeved patients take health boards to court. The Scottish Conservatives say the nationalist-run government is responsible for the shock figure, as mismanagement has led to overstretched staff making many more mistakes. Again, this is down to the wanker, the tosser, the masturbator of Morocco, the man who thinks it's more important to lock himself in a hotel room and knock one out with an iPad in his left hand rather than doing his actual job. If he had any decency, of course, he would have resigned and let someone else have a go. He is no longer able to control the NHS. He's got too many worries in his head, trying to save his marriage after he throws his children under the bus and trying to save his job because he's been proved to be a liar and a thief, as well as being Scotland's most infamous masturbator on record. Not the biggest wanker, I suspect, in the cabinet, but certainly the most infamous. Scotland's health boards have shelled out over £60 million on legal costs in the past 5 years, as peeved patients are taking them to court. Almost 2,500 legal claims have been made since 2018, as the SNP's handling of the NHS again comes under the spotlight. It comes as the mother of an 11-year-old girl with long COVID launched legal action against the health board in what she thought, or what is thought to be, the first case regarding the condition of its kind in Scotland. Figures obtained by the Scottish Conservatives suggest 13 health boards who responded to a Freedom of Information Act shelled out an eye-watering £60 million due to dissatisfied patients taking them to court. Now, that's only out of the 13 health boards, so you can at least double that money across the whole of Scotland. It is absolutely appalling that this amount is wasted simply because doctors are so overworked, because managers aren't doing their job, the nurses are run ragged, and the queues at the gates are getting longer and longer because nobody wants to address the problem. Greater Glasgow and Clyde recorded the highest figure. That's no surprise. We did the video on that the other day. That organisation is not fit for purpose. Every single manager in Greater Glasgow and Clyde needs to be fired. Greater Glasgow and Clyde needs to be split into two. It needs to be decoupled. It is a monolithic monster, and nobody is capable of running it. Anyway, it hit the highest figure, spending £17.5 million, fighting almost 700 cases. NHS Highland had the second highest spend, £313 million. What? That can't be right. I mean, maybe 3.15. It can't be from 17,350. No. The biggest single cost was £180,000 by NHS Fife on a single claim. The true total is likely to be even higher, as one health board failed to respond to the Freedom of Information request. And that's only for the cases of the hospitals. You're going to have the doctor's surgeries, you're going to have the outpatient care, you're going to have health visitors, things like this. By the time you add all that on, that will at least double. Tory Shadow Health Secretary Dr Sandesh Gillane branded the figures a damning indictment of the SNP's dire workforce planning. He said, "My heart goes out to the patients and families who've suffered as a result of the failings in Scotland's NHS." And there's many, many families who've suffered and continue to suffer because of the ineptness and stupidity of those running the hospitals. How can you have a hospital run by managers who don't know how to manage and controlled by a health minister who refuses to even acknowledge that there's a problem because he's too busy worried about his own problems with his personal, private and political life? Anyway, but the buck, he says, stops with a succession of SNP health secretaries, including Humza Yousaf and discredited Michael Mathson. These figures, he said, are a damning indictment of their dire workforce planning, which has left our health service woefully under-resourced. And because we have the example of the woman waiting in an ambulance in the car park of a hospital for 18 hours in the ambulance because she couldn't get in to the hospital. That ambulance was tied up for 18 hours. Those people undoubtedly died because an ambulance wasn't available. That is what the NHS has become under the SNP. He said dedicated staff are dangerously overstretched, and tragically, but inevitably, this is leading to more mistakes, a growing number of compensation claims and the resulting legal costs, as well as, more tragically, the deaths of people. The figures emerge as Helen Goss from West Hill in Aberdeenshire said she was seeking damages stemming for what she claims is medical negligence from NHS Grampian towards her daughter Anna Hendy, who suffered with long COVID since March 2020. She said Anna has been unable to return to school, needs to use a wheelchair and is often confined to her bed. And in the statement, Miss Goss alleged she and her family faced medical gaslighting, dismissal and were constantly denied NHS care. NHS Grampian said it would not comment on individual cases, but a long COVID pathway of care for children has been designed with the input of those with lived experiences. It's a bullshit. They go, oh look, we're going to give you some lines of bullshit that doesn't actually affect the fact that we screwed up royally and you're going to have to pay for it. A Scottish Government spokesman said, "We sympathise with any patient whose treatment has failed to reach the standards we expect from our health system." No, this is exactly the standard that people do expect from the health system. They've come to expect it to be utterly chaotic and basically shit. Because they've seen 17 years of underfunding, of budget cuts, of deliberate policy decisions to make things worse. Money that could be spent in patient care is being spent on glossy brochures. It's no surprise that this is happening. And so don't sit there and spew out these pointless, meaningless platitudes of, oh, we're deeply sorry, we're deeply sorry. You're not deeply sorry when you're cutting the budgets, you lying bastards. Stop spending money on independence, pump it into the NHS and put the money where people need it. Nobody gives a shit about independence when their child is lying in a cancer ward. And I'm not even going to finish what they're saying because we know it is just bullshit. It is utter bullshit. They're going to give excuses after excuses. The ultimate excuse is these two health secretaries, both of them failures. One was the worst health secretary in the world ever, and the second one is saying, here, hold my beer, I'm going to be even worse. And that's when he hasn't got his hand on his dick when he's sitting alone in his office, locking the door, iPad in one hand, knocking one out in the other one, because that's all he's worth. That's all he does, and it's what he is. And I'm coming up. My rant is over. I feel better for it. I do. I enjoy a good rant. But I'm not bloody wrong. These people are so inept. And you have to wonder, at what point is it just their inability to do the job ends and their deliberate decision to make these things happen begin? There has got to be that midpoint where stupidity turns to evil. And I think we've reached it. These decisions that they're making to constantly underfund the NHS, they are deliberate decisions. They know what's happening. They see what's happening. And they decide, nah, it's a price worth paying. Let's order some more glossy brochures. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring that bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, and let's get to 10,000 subs. That would be marvellous. Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Bye.